Hello everyone and welcome back to Navis Nobilite. I want you all to strap in because this is going to be a bit of a longer form video because we're going to be going over the special rules and the fleet lists of the Chaos fleets. And there's a lot of them, so you may want to get a snack or a drink because we're going to be going over the rules in a pretty heavy amount of detail. I'm going to try to avoid going over campaign rules. I may touch on them to an extent, but I'm going to be doing campaign rules and how to play in campaigns in an entirely separate video. But let's begin. First things first. Uh, Chaos Commanders. A Chaos War Master, as opposed to a Lord, must always be used as a fleet commander in any Chaos fleet that requires the use of a fleet commander, which will be specified in the actual fleet list. Under no circumstance may a Chaos Lord be placed on the same ship as a War Master. This is rather obvious. They would kill one another. Chaos is not a very happy fleet. They don't like to play along with one another very much. Boarding actions. Chaos has a +1 boarding modifier because they are stocked to the gills with ravening, bloodthirsty maniacs. And that's not even corn. The Chaos Space Marine upgrade replaces this, providing them with a total of a +2. Bear that in mind, it is not +3 total. Okay, Renegade Imperial Vessels. What this allows you to do is for every 1,500 points of a Chaos fleet, one cruiser from any Imperial Navy fleet list up to 185 points and or up to 6 Imperial Navy escorts may be taken. No special weapon rules, no Nova Cannon, no Chaos Lords, no Chaos Space Marines or Chaos Ordnance or Demon Ship upgrades may be taken for that Imperial Navy vessel, and it must suffer a -1 LD for going Renegade. No, Imperial Navy escorts need not be in a single squadron and may be interspersed with Chaos escorts if desired. They do not count as reserves, they count as Chaos vessels in all respects. So, that heavily limits what you can take. I recommend looking at the Imperial Navy overview to see what your options are, which they're pretty limited, in all honesty. Honestly, it looks like you can take the Tyrant, the Gothic, or the Lunar, and that's it. Plain and simple. No Nova Cannons for the Chaos list. Okay, when it comes to Chaos Ordnance, all right, you have a far greater abundance of assault boats, and they move at 30 centimeters. You have your Doomfire Bomber and your Swift Death Fighter. Nothing really that impressive. Now, demon ships. Chaos may allow ships to become demons. Now, demon ships can look like normal ships, or you can go completely aesthetic as much as you like. It's a lot of fun to make demon ships. You can be very creative with them. Now, how do you use them? First things first, the basic profile of any demon ship is unchanged. So no weapons are changed, no launch capacity is changed, etc. Now, the points upgrade cost depending on the capital ship. 20 for cruisers, 25 for heavy cruisers, 30 points for grand cruisers, and 50 points for battleships. Now, when you do this, you may not be given a War Master or a Chaos Lord. So you're working on basic leadership for the vessel. It may not have Chaos Space Marines, no matter what. So bear that in mind. This upgrade is the only upgrade you can really take beyond Marks of Chaos, which you can take on them. Cannot carry Exterminatus weapons or planetary assaults. That's for campaigns mostly. Demon ships cannot be used in squadrons because, again, you try to get two demons anywhere close to each other. They'll try to eat each other. You may have a single Mark of Chaos with the same effect costs as described in the rulebook. Demon ship leadership is rolled as normal. Warp translation. This is where things get a little weird. You may keep the demon ship off the table at the start of the game. Okay, the rest of your fleet is deployed as normal. This thing basically comes in with similar rules to deep striking, but let me go over the mechanics of it. Okay, so in the end phase of any chaos turn, including the first, after the first, I'm sorry, they may enter play from the warp as follows. Select a friendly or enemy capital ship. Only a capital ship contains enough supplicants or victims to draw it from the warp, within 20 centimeters of the chosen vessel, facing any direction desired, then roll scatter. You scatter and reposition the vessel accordingly, keeping the ship on the same heading. You cannot be forced to disengage if you go off the table. It just goes and stops at the table edge. If a hit is rolled, it arrives on target. The arriving demon ship is unaffected by celestial phenomena, does not trigger attack by ordnance, because it is what is known as spectral, and you cannot be base to base. You must be reposition it within 1 centimeter, so that it is out of contact of enemy vessels. So spectral ship. So basically, it starts haunting things. It goes, "Ooh, I am spooky," and as a result, nothing can attack it at all. No astrophenomena can affect it. And the only thing that it does on the board is everything within 50 centimeters is at a -1 leadership. Now, if you have Mark of Slaanesh, this is upgraded to -3. So that is a really, really nice benefit for the Mark of Slaanesh, because you can just basically land a ship right next to an enemy carrier and then make it suffer -3 leadership, making it pretty much impossible for it to reload its ordnance. Again, it cannot move, shoot, or board, or do any action when it is spectral, no matter what. And if somebody says otherwise, they're lying to you. Now, at the end of any subsequent Chaos end phase, it may complete its final transition into real space. Now, it does not have any spectral haunting, which means it loses that -1 when it's in the real world. Now, when you decide to translate it, you roll a d6. On a 2 or more, it becomes solid. On a 1, it stays spectral because it doesn't want to come and play ball. Now, once it is in the field, it now may be targeted. All right? Now, in the end phase, you can't board, you can't shoot, you can't do anything. It is simply appears and fights like a normal ship. Now, when it materializes in contact with celestial phenomena, it suffers any effects of those phenomena. Basically, it becomes a real ship, and it suffers all the consequences of its placement. If you materialize in an asteroid field, it may avoid damage by making a leadership normally. Okay, bear that in mind. Now, a demon ship may also disengage at the end of any chaos movement phase without having to make any dice roll. It just goes back to the warp. So, boop, it's gone. So if it's getting its ass kicked and it's barely alive, you may then, translate it back into the warp. Now, it may come back in following the translation rules above. The haunting, when it is haunting or it is spectral, it can still suffer from fire critical hits. So if it is spectral or if it's in the warp, it can still die from fire. So bear that in mind. If it is damaged when it disengaged, it may be repaired when it returns. Roll a d6. So once it goes to the warp, you roll a d6. On a 1, 2, and 3, there's no change. On a 4 and 5, it regains 1 hull point. On a 6, it regains 2. You add +1 if it's a battleship. You add +1 for each full turn the demon ship spent in the warp. So eventually, one way or another, you're going to heal your vessel up to its max. It cannot go beyond its max. You can get outside of crippled, so bear that in mind. Now, even if you are no longer crippled, it still counts as disengage for victory points, but will not count as crippled anymore. You also repair critical damage on a 4+ instead of a 6 while it is in the warp. Basically, it dips back into the warp to heal itself after you've pounded the tar out of it. Now, again, it does not come back with more hips than it normally would have. At the end of the game, if a demon ship is disengaged even once, it counts as disengaged whether you like it or not. Demon ships do not automatically regain hits after a battle. They have to be regained either in the game or with repair points, but that is a campaign issue. So why would you use a demon ship? Because you have a ship that you really like and you modeled it really cool and you don't want it to die particularly easily. Now, there are downsides to this. Namely, one, you are a slave to your leadership, which can be very, very detrimental to a vessel. Chaos has a lot of ways of boosting the leadership of important vessels. Demon ships do not have that. Also, you have to bear in mind that you're not going to be having this ship on the board if you're spectral actually shooting things until the 3rd round. So bear that in mind. A lot of people would take things like a slaughter, give it the Mark of Slaanesh and the demon ship upgrade, and just have it say spectral in amongst a slow-moving enemy for a couple of rounds to ruin their leadership. And that's a pretty darn effective way of getting the job done. Also, this is one of the critical reasons why light cruisers do not exist in the Chaos list, because demon ships would become too cheap, and ultimately it would serve to imbalance what is normally a very expensive upgrade. So you need to bear this in mind. This is a very important reason why there's no light cruiser option, and why you cannot just, well, theoretically, actually, no, you cannot make a demon ship out of an Imperial vessel. So, regrettably, you can't have a dauntless light cruiser as a demon ship. Nice try, though. That would have been really funny. So, these are very expensive upgrades, but what they serve to do ultimately is add in an element that your enemy cannot predict effectively. Either it is going to be damaging uh, they're going to heavily damaging their leadership if you give it a Mark of Slaanesh, or you can have a larger, more resilient vessel with a Mark of Corn behind the enemy lines after they have moved closer to the main bulk of your fleet, have it translate in, and suddenly they're dealing with an enemy vessel behind them, fighting them from a direction that they're not exactly expecting. But unfortunately, there's no, turn one, deep strike assaults like you would have in 40K. This this is a high risk, high reward gamble for the demon ship. But they do have the benefit of being able to simply leave the board and heal themselves, which is pretty unique in this game. Now, on Chaos Space Marine crews. Now, this again is an upgrade that can be taken pretty much on every fleet of Chaos. So, Chaos and Chaos Space Marine crews, any capital ship can be designated as having a Chaos Space Marine crew at the points cost indicated in the Army list. The ship will be subject to Chaos Space Marine special rules. If it contains a War Master or a Lord, you can assume he also has he is also a Chaos Space Marine. This is for narrative only and has no impact on the rules. So, War Master or Lord does not mean you automatically get this benefit. Okay? You have to pay the points in order for you to get the benefit. Okay? This has been a very, very contentious amount of ruling here that has finally been resolved. Leadership. Any vessel with Chaos Space Marine crew gets +1 leadership, including any other bonuses to there for a Chaos War Master or a Lord. So if you have a War Master with a +2 or a Lord with a +1, this is cumulative. Okay? Maximum leadership is always 10, so bear that in mind. Now, they have the standard Space Marine rules in regards to boarding and hit and run, +2 when doing a boarding action, and -1 for defense against hit and run attacks, and +1 hit and run attacks are in offensive hit and run attacks. So they are better defended against hit and run attacks, and they are better at doing it. They have the standard planetary assault rules. They have Terminator teleport attack. For extra 10 points, you may take a Chaos any battleship, Grand Cruiser with a Chaos Space Marine War Master, Lord, or Cruise may roll 2 dice when conducting a hit and run attack and select which one they want to count. So you have the benefit of adding +1, and if you roll a 1 and a 1 and a 6, you would probably want to start a fire, and that's the benefit of Chaos Chosen Terminators. It's usually a 10-point upgrade. Okay, a ship with Chaos Space Marine crew may take a Mark of Chaos. Okay, even if a War Master or Lord does not captain it. However, there are some restrictions in which which mark can be taken, depending on which legion controls it. Even if a War Master or Lord captains a ship, if it has a Chaos Space Marine crew, the choice of the Mark of Chaos is limited as well. The options are shown in the table below. World leaders can only have Mark of Kor, and Emperor's Children may only take Mark of Slaanesh. Death Guard can only have Mark of Nurgle. Thousand Sons only can take Mark of Tzeentch. The Black Legion can have any one mark, and others may not have any mark. Now, this is pretty fluffy, but generally speaking, you have to be careful about how you stack your fleet when it comes to your marks. It's because if you are taking Legion fleets, if the War Master ship is Chaos Space Marine crew and all their ships, if your War Master has a Chaos Space Marine crew, then all other ships in the fleet that have Chaos Space Marine crew must be of the same legion. So basically, if you take the Mark of Corn on your War Master ship, he's World Eaters. Congratulations, everyone has to take it now. You can't also mix and match. Emperor's Children won't play nice with World Eaters, and Death Guard won't play nice with Thousand Sons. This does mean you have to plan out your marks very carefully. If capital ships are grouped as squadron, then each squadron can only contain a single war master or lord, obviously because they hate each other's guts and want to kill each other. Alright, Abaddon the Despoiler is a special commander that you may take. Abaddon can be chosen to act as the fleet commander at any game if the Chaos Fleet is worth 1,000 points or more. You may not place a Chaos Lord on the same ship as Abaddon. He will die. He has the following benefits. Leadership is 10. That's not really a surprise. He has one reroll per turn, but there is a consequence if you bomb that leadership reroll. Special rules. He has Space Marines. Bear that in mind. He has the rules in effect of all having Space Marine crew. What's really important here is you have failed me for the last time. If Abaddon's reroll is used in a command check or a leadership test for a ship, and it is the test has failed the second time, he gets angry and he shoots them. Abaddon will direct at least half of his available firepower and lance strength of the ship he is commanding against the weaklings who have failed him. So yes, he will shoot his own people. He's not quite Karn the Betrayer, but he's as good as it gets in Battlefleet Gothic. Victims of the Wrath, assuming they survive, will be chastised and gain an additional leadership. So, yay, you shot my ship to tiny pieces, but I get better leadership. But, however, one thing to bear in mind, you may not use Abaddon's reroll on that ship at any point. No further command rerolls may be used on that ship unless it's containing its own Chaos Lord with a Mark of Tzeentch. Now, the funny thing is, if it happens on Abaddon's own ship, it will lose 1 damage point as the Black Legion massacre the ones that failed them. No leadership increase is gained. So, there's definitely the benefit and the negative of taking Abaddon, and it's always comedic if his own ship fails. So, bear that in mind. Now, this is all campaign rules. Okay, moving on to the first list. This is originally the Blue Book Chaos Incursion fleet list. This is also the one that I like the most because it's nice and simple. So we're going to talk about your commanders. You may take 1 Chaos Warmaster. You may include a Chaos Warmaster in your fleet, even if it's worth 750 points or less. This is a stark contrast to the Imperial Navy, where it is an option. He must be assigned to the biggest, i.e. most expensive ship, and improves its leadership at the value shown. Automatically LD8 or LD9. It costs 50 points or 100 points. You get 1 reroll, and you have the choice of the 4 marks of chaos if you so desire. The Mark of Slaanesh. Enemy ships within 15 centimeters of any Mark of Slaanesh suffer -2 to their leadership value. This is an area effect and not considered a line of sight. Line of sight is not affected by obstruction, so even if there's an asteroid field in the way, it doesn't help because they can still hear it. Even in space, they can hear you moan. So, Mark of Slaanesh is an excellent upgrade if you are a close-in fleet and you like disrupting enemy leaderships and carrier groups. It's also very effective on demon ships, so bear that in mind. Mark of Khorne. This doubles your boarding value and adds +1 to rolls for inflicting critical damage in a boarding action. So, bear that in mind. Now, this +1 to any rolls for inflicting critical damage is unique to the Chaos Warmaster. It is not shared in the Chaos Lord upgrade, though it does cost the same. It's the benefit of the Chaos Lord. Mark of Tzeentch, you gain an extra reroll, 30 points. Nice and straightforward. Mark of Nurgle, you may not be boarded, with one exception in the game, which is Grey Knight Space Marines. They can still board you, but you still gain that +1 damage that cannot be removed unless it is shot off. Now, you have the other option of taking 0 to 3 Chaos Lords that will bolster the leadership of your fleet. Their leadership is LD8, and their points cost is 50 points. You may take a Mark of Slaanesh, which is the exact same as the Chaos Warmaster version. The Mark of Khorne, which is not quite as good as the Warmaster's version, but it still doubles your boarding value. You get the Mark of Tzeentch, which is a reroll, and the Mark of Nurgle, which is the same as the Warmaster's. Now, going on to your ship options. In battleships, you may take a Chaos Battle Barge, the Despoiler, and the Desolator. You may take the Repulsive Grand Cruiser, which is always a good idea. In the heavy cruiser slot, you may take the Styx, the Hades, the Acheron, and the Hecate. In the cruiser section, you may take the Devastation, the Murder, the Carnage, the Slaughter, or the Inferno. Your escort options are the Idolator, the Infidel, and the Iconoclast. Now, this is a nice, simple, unintrusive fleet, and it is excellent for new players. It doesn't have quite the flexibility of the other fleets, but in that lack of flexibility, it still is nice and easy to use. And I actually prefer to use this fleet over the other ones, mostly because I have the option of a 50-point Leadership 8 War Master, which doesn't exist in any of the other fleets. So, that is a nice shaving of points. It lets me fit more ships because always in the Chaos Fleet, it is better to have more ships than fewer ships because these upgrades, these marks are expensive and they will start weighing you down. Chaos Space Marines are also a very expensive upgrade. If you're not, really hot on Chaos Space Marines or any particular, one of the gods, this is just a great unaligned list. It's really simple to use. I highly recommend it. Moving on, we have Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade fleet list. This is where we start getting into more of the toys. Now, your fleet commander option is Chaos Warmaster at LD +2 at 100 points. And you can take Abaddon at 195. Notice that you do not have the option of a smaller... you have the option of a Chaos Lord, but you can really, let's see. Any capital ship apart from that may take a captain by a Chaos Lord. It gains +1 leadership for 25 points. But when it comes to your commander, you can only take a 100-point commander. There's no way to save points in this regard. That's the difference between the Black Crusade fleet and the Chaos Incursion fleet. You have to spend the points on the War Master. So, you may take, again, a Chaos Lord on any capital ship, apart from the War Master, because they hate each other's guts. Now, with this, the maximum of 9 LD is present. A Lord may be given a single... Oh, sorry, let me finish talking about the War Master. The War Master gets 1 reroll, and it can take any single mark of Chaos, and it can buy an extra reroll at 25 points. So you can... This is pretty unique as well right here. Typically, you have to buy a mark in order to get extra rerolls, but he can actually buy one himself, which is actually not pretty nice, though he is very, very expensive. There's Abaddon. We went over Abaddon. Chaos Lords. Lord can be given a reroll for 25 points, but it can only be used for a ship or squadron only. A ship commanded by a Lord may be given a single mark, and of course there are the marks in question. Now, note here, the Mark of Khorne for this fleet does not have that +1 benefit to critical hits in a boarding action. That is unique to the Incursion list. So, bear that in mind. This is a weaker Mark of Khorne than it is in the previous list. Now, capital ships. You have the access to the Planet Killer if you so desire. And oh, I desire it. You have battleships. Again, the Battle Barge, the Despoiler, and the Desolator. In the Grand Cruiser section is broadly expanded, with the option of the Repulsive, the Vengeance, which if you want details on the Vengeance and Vengeance Grand Cruiser, please see the video on the Vengeance Grand Cruiser, the Retaliator, which is always a fun choice, and the Executor, which is similarly a very fun choice. This has been widely expanded in this list. Heavy cruisers, it is the exact same. You have the Styx, the Hades, the Acheron, and the Hecate. Your cruisers are exactly the same. The Devastation, the Murder, the Carnage, the Slaughter, and the Inferno. Here, you may take Chaos Space Marine crews. This is an option that evidently is unique to this fleet only. Okay? So bear that in mind. From the way this appears to be written, you cannot take it in the Incursion list. Let me quickly double check. That's always handy. Yeah, and as indicated by the Army list. So the Incursion list cannot take Space Marines. Bear that in mind, everyone. But Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade can take it. So that's a clarification. So this lists out the point costs. We've already gone over it. 35 points for Chaos Space Marine crew. You have access to demon ships in this fleet. It looks like you do not have access to demon ships in the Incursion list. That's interesting. So if you don't want to bother with demons, don't bother play the Incursion list. Your escorts are exactly the same, and the ordnance is virtually the same with one difference. A ship with Chaos Space Marine crew may also be equipped with Thunderhawk gunships. That's new. Now, personally, I would not recommend. It may only carry Thunderhawks and not Swift Death Doomfires and Dreadclaws. Furthermore, launch capacity is halved round down. This is a very interesting upgrade. I would not recommend taking it because while it is true Thunderhawks are resilient and do count as fighters, your Dreadclaws are better at the job. You have the same benefit to hit and run on a Dreadclaw, and they go 10 centimeters faster. This upgrade I would just never take. There's just no reason, at least in my opinion. You, of course, can take ships with torpedoes, can have boarding torpedoes. I would just take normal torpedoes. But, so what is the purpose of this ship? Well, one, it's really the first. I have all my toys on the table, and I want to play with them. This is a really good fleet if you want to play around with demon ships and Chaos Space Marines without having to dedicate yourself to a specific god. So you have almost all of the options, though your commander options are somewhat more limited than in the Incursion fleet. Now, we're going to now move on to the individual god fleets. So we're going to start with the Sorcerous fleet of Tzeentch. So, first things first, your War Master, same as exactly as above, 100 points, get one reroll, can buy another for 25 points. You must take the Mark of Tzeentch, which means you must pay the points for it. So bear that in mind. It's not just 100 points, it's 125 points. So bear that in mind. You may take a Chaos Lord on your command ships. Now, Lord may be given the Mark of Tzeentch. He does not have to take him for 25 points. And you can only be given a Mark of Tzeentch at 25 points. So bear that in mind. So if you want, you're going to be putting a lot of points into your commander here. You may take the Planet Killer if we're going to move. Oh, vessel given command of the Fates by its patron god. That's a description of the Mark of Tzeentch. My apologies. Capital ships. You may take a Planet Killer. Notice how here though you can't take Abaddon, but you can still take a Planet Killer. Battleships. You may take 0-1, the Scion of Prospero. You may take a Battle Barge. You may take the Despoiler or the Desolator. You have the same options for your Grand Cruisers as the 13th Black Crusade. You have all of the options for Grand Cruisers, all of the options for Heavy Cruisers, all of the options for Standard Cruisers. You may take, of course, Chaos Space Marine crews, Demon ships, though they can only take the Mark of Tzeentch. No surprises there. Now, here's where this fleet gets interesting. Okay? There are unique upgrades for this fleet. And Forces of Chaos. Warp Beasts, 25 points. Up to 2 capital ships, including the flagship, can have demonic entities and warp beasts swirl around the hull, including demon ships. Bear that in mind. This is one of the very rare upgrades that a demon ship can take. Once per battle, a single enemy ship within 15 centimeters takes D6 hits in the end phase. Shields have no effect. So, if somebody gets too close, they take a Nova Cannon hit. Right it with no shields allowed. This is a phenomenally good upgrade. Slap that on a slaughter, get it nice and close, and make them really suffer. Put it on your battleship if you think that someone's going to get close. It's an extra level of lethality that a lot of people are not expecting. And you can take it twice. Now, Strand of Fortune, 25 points. Any ship led by a Lord of Tzeentch and not the War Master. Okay? Maybe, so basically a Chaos Lord with a Mark of Tzeentch, I believe. Yeah, I believe that's the case. A Lord of Tzeentch. So I'm going to assume that's what that means. So, may be granted a Strand of Fortune, and once per battle, it automatically passes a command check or leadership test. No roll required. So that is very handy for some of your subordinate vessels if you need to make sure that your carriers actually pass their leadership when it comes to reload ordnance or that critical lock-on or brace for impact roll. So these are very useful upgrades. And it's really nice that the Tzeentch fleet has them. So bear in mind, use these upgrades. They're very good. Escorts are the same. Ordnance, obviously the same when it comes to Thunderhawk gunships. Now, what this ultimately builds for you is a reliable fleet. It's a very reliable fleet because the Mark of Tzeentch is everywhere. You can take Chaos Space Marine crews, make them 1,000 Suns, give them a Mark of Tzeentch. You can make sure that a ship with a Lord on it passes its leadership check. And if someone is dumb enough to get too close, they take a Nova Cannon hit right to their face. So, with no shields. So what you are building here is a fleet of reliability. These generally speaking will pass their leadership checks. While you still suffer the standard leadership roles unless you take Chaos Space Marines, the proclivity of the abundance of the Mark of Tzeentch will help you pass your leadership checks and that Strand of Fortune upgrade as well. Now, you don't want to go overboard with these Marks of Tzeentch and these Chaos Lords. They're expensive and you need ships. So bear in mind, you don't want to ever be spending more on upgrades than spending on ships. So that is the Sorcerous fleet. Now we're on to the Plague fleet of Nurgle. Okay, it's going to be very similar to the prior one. As you can see, Chaos Warmaster of Nurgle, 100 points. You must take the Mark of Nurgle, which makes him 135 points, not just 100. He may be given an extra reroll, which is actually pretty important because without that, you cannot take the Mark of Tzeentch anywhere in this fleet. Okay? Anywhere in these specific lists, you can't take the other marks, which means taking rerolls is at a premium. Chaos Lord, same as before. He may be given a reroll for 25 points, and he may take the Mark of Nurgle. Okay? He does not have to take the Mark of Nurgle. But I don't know why you wouldn't. It's the Mark of Nurgle. All right. In your fleet, your ship options are effectively the same as the Sorcerer's fleet with the Planet Killer, but here in Battleships, instead you have the Terminus Est as your character ship, and the Chaos Battle Barge, Despoiler, Desolator. All of the ships are present in all of these slots. What's really important is down here in your specific upgrades. Hives of Nurgle, 10 points. Any capital ship with the Mark of Nurgle may also take the Hives of Nurgle. The Murky Haze distorts the ship's silhouette. Vessels within 15 centimeters do not benefit from a left column shift when firing at it. This is a very defensive option and a very good one. And Arc of Pestilence, 5 points. Up to 3 capital ships may take the Mark. With the Mark of Nurgle, they may further take the Arc of Pestilence and may also become quote-unquote Arcs of Pestilence. Ships boarded by them are also infected by the plague in addition to all damage afflicted normally, affecting in the same way if it is suffered by a single fire critical repaired as normal. Ships hulked in this manner do not remain on fire and roll normally on catastrophic damage table. So this is actually a supremely useful upgrade because you automatically cause fire damage when you board people. That is really, really, really important when you're boarding because fires are basically helping guarantee that an enemy ship dies shortly thereafter. And it's so cheap at 5 points. It's, I think, the only upgrade in the Chaos fleets, all of them, that's below 10 points. So if you're playing a Nurgle fleet, you should be taking this 100%. These are excellent upgrades. Okay, so what is the Plague fleet? It is all about durability. When you take that Mark of Nurgle, your ships get +1 on their hits, which makes them harder to crit. It makes them harder to kill, and if you take the Hives of Nurgle, the benefit of getting close and shooting someone in the face doesn't exist anymore. So the enemy has no benefit to getting close, and it benefits you to board them. So yeah, Nurgle is all about predictably resilience. Their ships are tougher, their ships last longer, and they're harder to crit. And these here make getting close to them a really bad idea. All right, moving on to the Berserker fleet. The Berserker fleet similarly has all of the same rules in regarding to their Warmaster. The Warmaster is 100 points and must take the Mark of Khorne at 20 points. Again, you don't get that benefit of the fancy rules of the Incursion fleet. It just doubles your boarding value. Not that it matters that much because you could take Chaos Space Marines and double up on this benefit. So, same rules for the Warmaster and the Chaos Lord. When it comes to ships, the only thing that's different is the Slaverer. In your battleship section, you may also take the Chaos Space Hulk. Now, is that not available in the others? No, it is not available in all the others. Huh. Looks like only the Berserker fleet can take a Chaos Space Hulk. That's another unique thing, as demented as that is. You may take one Space Hulk in the fleet, which must be the flagship of the Chosen. Berserker fleets led by a Space Hulk may have more than 2 battleships, but other restrictions remain unchanged. This is ridiculous. Gotta love the Berserker fleet. Okay, so what makes this so important? Now, Forces of Chaos, you have the Berserker Tide, which is a free upgrade. Any ship with the Mark of Khorne conducting a boarding action may roll D3 extra critical damage rolls, if desired. But then it may not take any special orders, including Brace for Impact in the next turn. Carriers with this mark launch up to D3 more attack craft markers of any type if less than 20 centimeters from their target. If they do, they must reload ordnance and not launch in the next turn. Oh, that's so good. Now, obviously, this is an aggressive fleet, but there is a couple of important things in this fleet that I really need to point out. Namely, this baby right here, the Retaliator class Grand Cruiser. This is the most corny ship in the fleet. And that no joke involved. This ship is designed to deliver Khorne Berserkers to the enemy as fast as possible on a durable platform. What I would do, not have this be your War Master, give this a Chaos Lord, give him the Mark of Khorne, and then give it Space Marine crew. Then you charge this thing right down the center of the board, taking advantage of the rule here, Berserker Tide, and dump into a target ship, so assuming you get within 20 centimeters, up to a total of 7 assault boats loaded with Khorne Berserkers, and disable them, and then board them and trash them. A Retaliator class Grand Cruiser has a boarding value of 20 when it has the Mark of Khorne. It'll have similarly a +2 to the boarding action and all of the benefits of Berserker Tide. You will be able to turn over and fold enemy battleships with very little effort with this particular guy. Give them a couple of slaughters too, because they can keep up with it. But aside from that, you also have the Slaver and the Chaos Space Hulk. There's a lot of fun to be had in the Khorne Berserker list. So now we're moving on to the Pleasure Fleet. Now, again, same rules in regard to the War Master. You must take the Mark of Slaanesh. It's 25 points. Lords may take the Mark of Slaanesh. Your options are, again, all the same, with the exception it can take the Planet Killer, it cannot take a Chaos Hulk, it can take the Wage of Sin. Let's go down and look at its special rules. Veil of Lust, 20 points. Any ship with the Mark of Slaanesh may be obscured by the Veil of Lust. Ships firing on this vessel using the gunnery table automatically suffer a right column shift before any other markers are applied. And the Siren Song, 25 points. Up to 2 capital ships with the Mark of Slaanesh, including the flagship, may take the Siren Summon. Within 15 centimeters of an enemy ship, enemy vessels cannot take special orders or make checks of any type, including Brace for Impact. I cannot impress upon you how important this is. You shut down the leadership of an enemy ship. Put this onto a slaughter. Send it into the middle of the enemy fleet. Put it on a demon ship. Have it teleport into the center of their formation. Watch as they can't do anything. This is an incredible upgrade. These are so good. Incredibly defensive. Any ship, including things that automatically count as closing. This basically makes Eldar play by the normal rules of the game. This is a phenomenal set of upgrades. Now, you are being in this fleet pushed towards the enemy. You want to get close to utilize the benefits of the upgrades. And Chaos, the ships are not resilient. So that's something to bear in mind. It wants you to get close, so they're giving you these tools in order to be sure that they will, at the very least, even if they are damaged when they get there, will make the enemy really regret it when it does so. Now, these upgrades are rather expensive, 20 and 25 points, so be very careful with how you use them. Okay? So that is the Chaos fleet lists. They're very uniform. There's not a lot of difference between them. Really, the differences involved are the marks and a couple of ships here and there. But overall, if you are a big fan of the Big Four, you have a fleet that is very fluffy and also very effective. If you prefer a more general fleet, if you have two options that are really not aligned with any god, and if you want a bare bones fleet that is just cheap to bring, cheap to use, with a lot of low cost options for your command, the old incursion fleet is still really solid. And in fact, my tournament list uses the Chaos Incursion fleet list because I'm very light on command, but I'm very heavy on ships. So that's the Chaos fleet lists. I hope that was educational for you all, and I'm going to go on now to talk about the first fleet that breaks all the rules of the game, the Corsair Eldar. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all again in the next video.